Yo, 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 what it do? What it do? It's your boy Yellow the Poet, and today I'm here with Miss Lale Davidson. She's an author, a teacher, storyteller, and wears many hats. Oh my goodness. So today I'm going to welcome Miss Lale Davidson. Thank you so much for joining YTP Entertainment. It's an honor to have you. We love having new people here on the show and learning new things from you. So please, by all means, let us know what it is that you do and some of these many hats you're wearing, because your story is fantastic.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations for your recent successes. Yeah, I teach at a community college in upstate New York. So, I'm dealing with a lot of students who are, facing many, many challenges, and writing is not their favorite thing to do. Which I get. Writing is hard. It uses all the different parts of your brain. So, but I'm obviously dedicated to the topic, and really believe we were talking briefly before the show about authenticity, and that's how I teach. I really believe in reaching, trying to be real with people, and both about my own challenges and my own successes, and then dealing with their challenges and trying to remove the shame. There's a lot of shame around not knowing how to do stuff.
Yes.
So, and then I'm also a writer of fiction. I've always been a writer, but I haven't, really gotten my work published until 2021. So, late in life for me. But I'm delighted to have a book of short stories. They're all in the kind of magic realism genre, which I can talk about in a second. And then I have a novel that's kind of semi-autobiographical that starts in South America and, goes all the way up to New York State and across the country, about, coming of age story. And then a novel about environmental activists. And my most recent novel that's behind me on my screen is Beyond Sight, a ghost story set in Saratoga Springs, where I live. Yeah, I like those stories too.
I love the ghost stories.
Yeah.
So tell us what got you into writing in the first place. What was the most intriguing moment that say, hey, I'm going to actually start writing?
Well, it started early, and actually it started with trouble. My parents were both professors. They really believed, they loved traveling. They really believed in exposing us to different cultures, and not in that. And so we didn't travel in that touristy way where you go on a cruise or whatever, and you basically stay in your own culture. They believed in like immersion traveling. So when we went to Germany, I was in first grade, and she plunked us down in the middle of a German school, and I had to learn to speak German. And then we did that for a year. And when I came back to the United States, I had learned to read and write in German. I'd learned to read in English and in German, but all the vowel sounds were different. So
Yeah.
when I went to school, I couldn't spell because I just couldn't figure it out. So they gave me a tutor. And she was trying to explain vowels to me, and I was like, a vowel? What's a vowel? Like it just was so obscure. And then she said, just write a story. And I was like, oh, write a story. Like my mom had always read stories to us, and I was so excited. Like it never occurred to me that I could write a story. And then I thought about all the stories my mom had read to us that the endings, I didn't like the endings. And it was like, oh, I could make these stories end any way I want. So that's how it started. It started with trouble.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's understandable. A lot of us, as writers, because I too am a published author, and a lot of us start off with a lot of troublesome events.
Yeah.
A short story about myself, though, should I say the short version? I was actually growing up in a home that wasn't so conducive for a child to actually be in. And in that happening, I ended up becoming very interested in writing a lot of poetry. So
Mm-hmm.
as my as my opportunities grew with poetry, I wanted to actually um, do something with it. And it wasn't until 2010 that I wrote my first poetry book, but I was writing poetry all along before then. So
Mm-hmm.
the troublesome background in the writing is it's kind of like something that you can kind of expect from some people, but then other people
Right.
find other ways to use an outlet, and that's kind of scary sometimes.
Yeah, but I think that's right. I mean, I remember maybe I asked this question, but eventually somebody asked me the same question. It's like, why are all these books and poems so sad? And and the reason is because we write to solve our problems. We write to heal ourselves. We write to understand the problems. So I think a lot of writers, yeah, the writing saves you. It's how you gain some measure of control over your life and some perspective on it.
Enthusiasm. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because a lot of times we're not getting that type of encouragement that we need to continue on doing well in our life, or even to start to do well in our life. We're not getting that enthusiasm sometimes. So to get the encouragement, we kind of like encourage ourselves. And when someone praises anything that we write about, that helps us. So there's a lot of factors in that, and a lot of them are really good, and it's an
Yeah.
interesting way to
Yeah.
have an outlet. It is.
Yeah.
I love I love it. So I saw that you won the Chancellor's Award. How was that?
So yeah, that comes from the SUNY, the State University of New York, which is what SUNY stands for. They give these awards, and I got that because of publishing. I think it was when I published Strange Appetites, and I don't know if there we go. And it won the People's Choice Award from a local writing center called the Adirondack Center for Writing. And yeah, that's something where somebody nominates you, and then your colleagues all get together and they review things. And I had started a blog, and they were sort of amazed at how I could work full time and still write a book of short stories and blog. So yeah, that's how I got that
That's
award. Yeah.
awesome. Love
Yeah,
it.
it's nice to get an award once in a while.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Definitely helps you keep being motivated to actually continue doing more writing.
Yeah.
What was your first book, and how long did it take you to write it? Because that's often one of the questions that a lot of writers are intrigued by.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So my first book is Blue Woman Burning, and I'm going to tell you the truth. It took me 20 years to write that, which is kind of interesting because this one got written. I mean, it probably took me more like 3 years to write this one, although it was written over 10 years. Like I wrote the draft of the screenplay and then didn't do anything with it. And then 10 years later thought, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a novel.
Right.
And this also took less time beyond sight. So I would say 2 or 3 years. But why did it take me 20 years? Your first book, I like to say this is not my first book. This is my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth book. Like I had to rewrite it first of all, I needed to learn how to, you can read directions on how to do something, but you really have to do it before you know how.
Yes,
So I just had to keep redoing it. And I think also because it was autobiographical, it made it very hard to write because
Mhm.
you have to reach a certain understanding of your life.
Yes.
And I was writing about, my family I mean, I had a privileged life in the sense that I had enough food to eat. I had, a roof over my head. My parents were not abusive in any kind of way that you would recognize as abusive, but they were complicated people. I mean, my mom was a bit of a narcissist. My father suffered from depression.
Mhm.
My older brother suffered from bipolar disorder. So our family was a little crazy. And growing up, there were 5 kids. It was hard to tell what was real. My mom really, my brother, suffered from all these problems, but he's very, very smart. and she really favored him, and sort of at my expense. Like, she was always kind of putting me down, saying, well, you're really competent, and you're no bother. It's great that I never have to pay attention to you. um, and that was really hard for me, emotionally. So the novel was about that triangulation between my mother and my brother and myself. And I love my brother very much. We're kind of almost twins. Um, but he does suffer a great deal, emotionally, and still suffers, and has trouble earning a living and just functioning. And that's hard. So the novel was really about that. I woke up, I grew up in terror that my brother was going to kill himself at some, that the pain would become too much and he'd do himself in. And so my novel was sort of playing out that terror of, what would happen if that happened. But I love magic realism because it's sort of like fantasy where, in this book, it starts out, they're traveling in South America and they're in this very high plain, and, it's all these gray sands and winds, and the mother starts running and she bursts into flames and vanishes.
Oh, wow.
So the rest of the story is how do we make sense of this? Did this happen or not? And if it happened, then why? And if it didn't happen, then what's wrong with us? So what is real is really the central question. And it just took me a long time to understand that. So I did a lot of writing chapters, throwing them out, writing whole new chapters, throwing that out, outlining it, sending it around, getting feedback on it, etc. Yeah. So that's what took me 20 years.
So I'm going to share my screen with you. I want you to see this is actually my first book. My first book is called When the Tears of Life Play.
Mm. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And when I wrote this book, it actually took me about 10 years to write this book. And the reason being is because, just like you said, there was a lot of editing, there was a lot of redoing. This was in 2010 when it was finally published. And the book is no longer on the market anymore because the publishing company that actually published it never paid me for it. They got And then the government stepped in and shut them completely down. So they could they can never publish another book again. I never got paid and literally lost over $400 million is what that book made. And I never got paid. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there was also some celebrities that was with the same publishing company, because I had actually won in 2012. I had actually won the first page, because anybody who wins that first page, then you get published in that article that they had, the newspaper article that they had, and it was in all 50 states, and your book gets published in every single language. So I actually won first page.
Wow.
The celebrities, and I never got anything for it. Never.
Wow, that's amazing. And is it, I didn't take down, so I could still look, I could still find it if I went to Amazon?
Well, you'll see the cover, but it's always gonna say out of stock.
Oh.
That's the bad part,
So
because
could you not, and you couldn't get the rights back and then self-publish?
I could have, but in order to get the rights back, I would have had to have an entertainment lawyer, and an entertainment lawyer wanted $10,000 up front. And how could I pay $10,000 up front?
That's
I wasn't
crazy.
even making any money.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. That's amazing.
It is.
Wow. Well, I mean, at least it got out there and got all that attention. So do you have you done more books?
Yes, I have another book that's also being sold on Amazon, and my second book, which is getting ready to be actually getting ready to be relaunched because I had did that book, and then I was in the process of writing another book at the same time. So
Hmm.
it was a lot of fun. Uh,
Hmm. I
share
had
my
a,
share
yeah,
my so you can
okay.
see the other one. So here is my other book. This one is called Redeem Love, and there's a picture of myself and my wife on the front page.
Mm. Oh, nice.
Thank you. So
Poet.
you got Redeem Love with me and my wife on there.
Nice.
And then the other book that I have is actually a journal
Hmm. Hmm.
for self-preservation. So it has blank pages in there, allowing
Yeah.
people to go in and look at, you know, just look at a blank page and allow themselves to be able to um, go back and reflect on some of the things that they were actually doing before. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people try to do things to change their lives. So the purpose of me writing this journal was to allow people to be able to say, hey, I'm going to change some things about myself. So write those things down that you intend to change about yourself, and then reflect back to those things as you feel like you're progressing. So I got,
Yeah.
and also have a children's coloring book.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's, and that is the chief power, I think, of writing. And again, why people with troubled lives sometimes write or sing or whatever is there's something about the act of writing something down that kind of, maybe it's self-witnessing, listening to yourself and getting perspective, because you think this is the way it feels today and this is my truth, and then tomorrow it's different, and you only know that if you can read yesterday, what you wrote down yesterday.
That is
And then I think that gives you access to your own wisdom. So yeah, I do a lot of journaling as well.
that is so cool. I actually was looking forward to, I have another book that I'm actually working on right now. And I'm actually looking forward to taking that one this time and doing some snippets, some video snippets, and
Mm,
telling people about certain portions of it before I actually publish it this time.
yeah.
So whatever responses I get back, that's what'll determine if I'm going to publish that book either through audiobooks or if I'm going to actually do the actual paperback or hardcover. Just depends on the responses. It's not
Yeah. It's going to be
no
poetry again, or
no, this time it won't be poetry. It won't be poetry, and it'll actually be nonfiction.
oh, so like a memoir about
Mhm.
your life. Oh, nice.
Well, it's not about life because it's funny when I wrote "When the Tears of Life Play." I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of people were not sure what I meant when I said when the tears of life play. When you think about the different levels that you progress to in your life,
Hmm.
especially coming from a troubled life and working your way to progress forward, trying to work on your own success, there's a lot of things that go on in between that. So the purpose for me doing when the tears of life play was to write about the total opposite of what I was going through, write about the progress that I was making in life rather than to write about the sad things or the traumatic things that was actually happening in my life. So I
Oh, that's
wanted
brilliant. Yeah. That's so smart. There's like a whole therapy around, it's called narrative therapy, and that's exactly what it's based on. Is like, instead of telling the sad stories, you go back and you tell, how you survived or how you made a good choice or how you uh it's sort of like you're telling the success stories that are buried in the trouble.
hmm and I did it in third person. I like to write in third person a lot so that anyone who could relate to particular situations in the book, they could actually put themselves there without having to even focus on my name or focus on me. They can put
Yeah.
themselves in that situation.
Yeah. Yep. That's cool. I love
So
that.
I love writing in third person. I think it's one of the best things. And I think it's intriguing to a lot of people because it allows them to actually be able to put themselves in somebody's shoes or put themselves in a position where they either were at one point or they know somebody that was actually there.
Yeah. 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 Well, I have to say that my other novels, Against the Grain, which are not autobiographical, and they are written in third person, and they were easier to write, I think, because while
Mhm.
I was accessing some parts of my own personality, um, it was freeing to be writing about somebody else besides myself, and so it was just easier to do, easier to maintain a good perspective on. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So in your writing, then versus now, what would you say has changed as far as your writing and how has it affected you as a writer?
So that's a good question. I think when I was younger, when I was writing that first book, I was really consumed with the idea of needing to prove that I was really smart or really brilliant or really a good writer. So a lot of my motive for writing was see how smart I am, see what a good writer I am. And that doesn't make the best writing, it's not authentic. So as I got older and a little bit more secure, I began to go like, how can I write a good story that's really going to grab people and engage people? And what is fun for me to write? Like, what do I enjoy writing? What do I enjoy reading? Let me write the kind of book that I would love to read. And then, because I came from this family of English professors, I think I felt a lot of pressure to kind of be literary and, avant-garde and write the hard stuff that people would admire, when the truth of the matter is I like a really good story. I like I want deep character development. I want it to be well written. I don't like cliches, but I want to be carried away by it. So that's the big difference, is there's a lot less of me in my stories.
That makes sense, and it's totally
Yeah,
understandable. A
yeah.
lot of us get caught up in that. Let me make sure I'm saying the right things, or let me make sure that I sound professional, or that
Mhm.
people can actually um, relate to me, not so much as to what I'm writing, but make sure they can relate to me. And that's a really hard book to write. And I think that any beginning writer, it would take us a long time for to actually get that book completed, to get it edited,
Yeah.
to get the thought process together to write the proper plot for it. It's just there's just a lot of confusion in doing that first book, and a lot of people say, "Well, I wouldn't even know where to start. I don't even know what."
Yeah. And the answer is you start anywhere you can, and don't worry about writing it in order. Another thing that really changed for me is the first draft, the first books were written just using whatever the word processing program, for a while it was Word Perfect. And then then, Word that went out of business. And so then it was Word. But what really helped me is somebody turned me on to Scrivener, which is do you know it? It's an app that really just it can help you write novels. It can help you write screenplays. And what's brilliant about it is that you write every scene as its own little document. And then you can see all the scenes on the left side of your page. So you can see a whole line of all your scenes, and you can just click and grab them and move them around. So you don't have to write it in order. You just write what you know, and then you can write little synopsis of each scene, and then you can start to move pieces around. And that's so much better than the endless scrolling of like, where did I say that? What page was that on? Like, where did I write that out? Like the scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. That doesn't happen with Scrivener. And again, also when you go to rewrite, let's say you go, I want my character, let's say your character had brown hair, and then you want them to have orange hair or something.
Mhm.
You got to go find all the places where you said brown and
Yeah.
change it. That's a lot easier because you can do search and replace, but also you're like, oh, well, this chapter is about, John, so I'll go in. I know I have to change everything in that chapter.
Mhm.
So Scrivener really helped me make sense of that great big mess.
I like that. I like that. It kind of reminds me of OneNote because it reminds me of OneNote off of Office 360. Because with
Oh,
OneNote, you can actually write inside of OneNote, and I actually introduced this to my colleagues when I was in college.
uh-huh.
Um, you actually write whatever you want to write, and you can move the pages around. You can move the words around to rewrite whatever you want to rewrite. You can take whatever lines out and put those lines wherever you need them to go. And I love it. It also does a great job with math. Like you can actually put addition and subtraction questions or fractions inside of it.
Oh, wow.
And it'll actually help to solve. It actually give you the answers to solving those problems. So it's a really, really awesome tool to actually use. I like
Yeah,
that.
I've never used it. Yeah.
Yes, OneNote is awesome. It's my go-to. When I'm writing, I go to OneNote. It's inside of the Microsoft programs.
Huh,
So
I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
yes, yes, I think you will love it. I think you'll love it. I think you probably go back and forth between the two for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm also looking at inside of your story, you have my first novel, Blue Woman, and
Mhm.
it tells a fiction about a version of the mystical trip. So in a Dodge, does that Dodge relate to any particular portion of your life?
The Dodge Dart.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was the actual car that we took. So, it was a sedan. I think when people think, you're going to go on a 12,000-mile trip, that you might do it in a RV or a van at the very least. But
Yeah.
no, we did it in a sedan. Of course, sedans were bigger in those days. That was in the 1970s. But there were five of us. So um, my my parents sat in the front seat, of course, with sometimes my older brother in the middle, and then me and my younger brother sat in the back seat with our extra luggage packed in between us. And then we had all our clothing in one suitcase and some big sleeping bags. And then my father just built like a little table that you could open up the trunk and pull the table out, and then you put your little camp stove on that. So we, ate that way. So it was like car camping, I guess is what it's called. But the weather was so good that often we didn't put up tents. And again, in the 1970s, you could kind of camp anywhere. It's not like it is today where you could only camp in campsites. You could sort of pull over and throw your sleeping bag into a field and sleep there. At least that's how my parents did it.
Nobody bothered you. It was amazing because
Yeah.
my uncle my uncle and my cousins, we would actually go out on different trips, and you can pretty much camp out anywhere. I definitely remember those days.
Yeah.
I was a little boy, but it's crazy. I still remember some of those days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We did all kinds of stuff that would be crazy today, like hitchhiking and stuff like that. Nobody hitchhikes anymore.
Well, believe it or not, I just saw somebody hitchhiking about
Oh yeah,
weeks ago.
poor guy. He's gonna have a hard time at getting anybody to stop for him.
Definitely, because I don't think anybody stepped that out. Stop. They probably just looked at him and like, yeah, okay, sure.
People have
So
gotten.
I ask you now, as far as your writing today, how has your writing affected your teaching style?
Well, I think it gives me more compassion for my students, for one thing, like that. Like um, I understand procrastination. I understand why we do it. And I also know how to get past it. So I think it gives me a lot of insight into like, all right, if you can't write it, write about it, or, set a timer and just do anything, write it badly,
Mhm.
come back and fix it later, So I think it just gives me a kind of very realistic attitude and a focus on the process. I think I focus on the process a lot more than the product. And that's probably because what I found as a writer is if you have a good writing process,
Mhm.
the product will come. As long as you've got, so you focus on your process, meaning like maybe you get up every day and you write a draft and then you put it away and you don't try to fix it and you come back to it the next
Yes.
day and you pay attention to the urges that move you when you think about how to revise. And then, you get feedback from other people. I think people don't understand that, they think of writing as this solitary act that you do alone, but a lot of writing, you've got a reader, like usually your spouse is your first reader and they're helping you. And then you've got friends and, or a writing group. So if you've got all those processes in place and then you're patient and you keep coming back to it, it's going to get good, you know?
Yes, indeed. That is so true. That is so true. So, what advice would you give to people that are trying to overcome writer's block?
Well, the first one that was the most helpful was the if you can't write it, write about it, but write about it in a positive way. So you're saying, so instead of trying to like, you're like, oh, I want to write a novel. Let me start on chapter one. That's intimidating. So
Mhm.
instead, just start taking notes on like dreaming of like, I want this novel to be like this, and then maybe this would happen. It's almost like you're just talking aloud to yourself, but you're doing it on paper. And
Mhm.
that's an important part because a lot of people want to just do it in their minds
Mhm.
or maybe just talk to a friend, but they don't want to put it on paper. And I always say, no, talk aloud to yourself, but do it on paper because it triggers the mind.
Mhm.
Your
Does.
mind is way more powerful than you are aware.
Mhm.
You're, so I also say to people, no matter how smart or stupid you think you are compared to other people, rest assured that you are brilliant because you were born a human being. Like you could have been born a slug. And, slugs have their intelligence, you
Yes,
know,
that's.
animals have their intelligence, but they're not quite as smart as human beings. Like human beings, you have this amazing thing called a brain, and there are ways that you can harness that brain. I think we spend a lot of time trying to avoid it. But one of the ways to harness the power of it is to write it and then have you ever had that experience where you write something and you're like, and you go back and you read it and you're like, I wrote that? Where
Yeah.
did that come from? And it comes from triggering that brain. When you start to write, things change and inside your mind, and you start to access parts of your brain that you don't have access to sort of in your daily life. And
Yes.
that's where it comes from. Some people think it's, divine or that it's coming channeling, energies from outside yourself. And whatever you want to believe, that's fine. But bottom line is writing things down opens things up into your mind and unleashes its capacity. So I would say if you can't write it, start to daydream on paper about what you want to write and it doesn't have to be in order. It can be rambling and then understand that you have to come back and revise and revise and revise and that it is a process and it takes some time. But my dad when we were in the summers, he always put us to work in the summer. And sometimes he would give us these impossible tasks. Like he had saved a bunch of
Mhm.
cobblestone from Pittsburgh. That was where he lived, from the Pittsburgh streets. They were just throwing them out. And he was like, these are beautiful. I'm going to save them. And he put them in a great big pile, and the weeds started growing up around them. So he would say, now, Lolly, I want you to go and move that pile and cut down all the grass and then move the rocks back. And I'm like, 11, and I'm looking at this huge pile of rocks thinking, how, how am I going to get this done? And one rock at a time. You just pick
exactly.
one rock up and you move it, and then you go back and pick the other rock up and you move it. And God, and if you keep doing it, it gets done. And it's the same thing with writing.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, I never thought I would have thanked him for making me do that, but lesson.
So tell me, how has um being ADHD become a superpower?
Well, I didn't even know I had ADHD until I was older. I just was always late for everything. And I had trouble focusing in meetings. And when I was reading, I just thought it was because I was stupid.
Oh,
Um, yeah. And finally, when I got diagnosed, it really was a great insight. It was like, oh, I don't understand time. Like I seriously don't get it. And so, I have to set a lot of alarms for myself. So understanding that I had it was important because it took the blame off of it. But the way that it's a superpower is that I began to see that even that it's not that it's not a deficit. I think it's a bad name, attention deficit. I think
mhm,
it's actually that you're paying attention to everything at the
mhm,
same time. So then it's hard to absorb things because you're observing so much. So that's how it's a superpower is that I think as an ADHD person, you probably are aware of more things than other people are um, at the same time. And what I learned is not to, I mean, yes, sometimes I do try to harness my attention by bringing it back to the same point, like by like practicing meditation. But other times I follow my mind where it goes,
mhm,
because often when you're doing that thing that you think is not paying attention, it's that somebody said something that made you think of something else that is connected. And if you can remember what it was you thought about and then relate that to the person, it often creates these really fascinating conversations. So it's a superpower in the sense that your mind is leaping very quickly all over the place, and if you can kind of learn to ride the mind and
mhm.
remember where it went, it's actually a form of intelligence.
Yes, I totally agree. I deal with my stepson. He has ADHD, so every day I'm actually getting the experience of what it's like to deal with someone that has ADHD, and I find it very intriguing. You may call me weird. Some people may call me weird or whatever, but I literally find it very intriguing to just sit back and study and watch his every move. He's young adult now,
Yeah,
but just watching his every move and just actually being able to see how he thinks, because his body language tells pretty much how he thinks or what he's thinking of, what he's getting ready to do next.
yeah,
And just studying those things, it still is to this day. It's just very intriguing. I think that
yeah.
it's
People
interesting.
with oh, sorry. People with ADHD tend to be really creative because their minds are leaping around. And so then they are flexible thinkers. They don't tend to think inside the box because they don't like to be limited by boxes.
Yes, yes, and
It
he's
does
also
get better as you get older too. It's much harder when you're younger, you
it's
know.
just also suffers from dyslexia. And when sometimes we'll have family discussions about a lot of current events, a lot of historical events, and we're all just standing around and we're like just vibing off of each one's story or each one's way of telling the story.
Yeah,
And just to hear him explaining things, like sometimes he can give a real solid explanation. Then other times he's at a loss for words, and
mhm.
it's so interesting. It's like he knows what he wants to say, but it's just can't get it out. And it's really interesting to see that process as he fluctuates, going up and down in the conversation. I think that's to me is almost as interesting as watching human growth, when humans grow from a infant into uh a teenager or a
Yeah.
young adult, and then watching them grow into adulthood that's a very interesting cycle to me. It always has been.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, it's great that he has you on his side because there's a lot that the world can do to make you feel bad about that tendency of mind. And it does take, like, you do have to come up with strategies. Like, I have found that I read much better if I listen to books while I'm walking because I need the physical activity to keep my focus, that the physical activity helps my brain stay with a topic.
okay.
And that's really healthy. So then I'm walking and I'm reading at the same time. But it took me a long time to understand that that's what I needed to do. So, coming up with strategies, and the world, schools kind of, they give you strategies for, I guess, what is considered sort of the more normal state of mind. But the world needs people with that, with ADHD because of the flexibility. And I was thinking, yeah, no wonder he has trouble saying what he's thinking, because probably he's thinking something fairly complex
Mhm.
with a lot of different points to it. And I find that as a teacher too, that there's a certain period like in middle school where students are writing fairly well, because they're kind of organized, and it's like, it sounds pretty good. And then they get into college and they start to have more complex thoughts and their writing gets all tangled. And so it seems like they've gotten worse, but it's not, they haven't gotten worse. They've just gotten to be more complex thinkers. And then it's a little bit harder to vocalize that.
That's one thing I noticed when I would listen to Barack Obama's speech.
Oh,
When I listened to him speak out, I noticed that he kind of has this very short pause in between some of the things that he say, because you can tell that the wheels are turning and
yeah.
he's multiple things to say as he's giving his speech. And one time I was listening to him and someone was like, why you keep doing that? Why you keep pausing like that? I was like, that is a sign of a very intelligent being trying to put everything in a proper perspective or format to where he's not being offensive to any,
Hmm.
no matter where he goes. He doesn't want to be offensive to anyone. And they was like, yeah, but can he just say, I said, think about it like this. Pick a topic and think of everything that goes along with that topic. Not try to say everything at the same time. He's like, man, you can't say everything at the same time. I said, exactly. That's the same thing that's happening to him, but it's just happening faster.
Yeah. I love that. That's a really, really insightful. And yes, I remember I used to be really um self-conscious about the kind of pausing that I did. For that same reason, I was like the person you were talking to, like, why am I pausing like this? It doesn't. And then the same thing happened. I was listening to somebody else and I noticed that she was pausing in the middle of her sentences. And it was because she was choosing just the right word. She was like, this word.
Yep.
And that's when I stopped being self-conscious. I thought, right, I need to pause sometimes because I'm saying things that matter. Plus, I think it's easier to listen to people if they pause sometimes.
It is. It is. We sometimes we don't think that it is, but when you
Yeah.
listen to someone that just goes on and on and on and on and on, and you're like, goodness, that's
Breathe.
just never stop talking. Take a breath.
Yeah. 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 I teach public speaking also. And I say,
Awesome.
I say to my students, I say, that your temptation is to create a wall of words, but you don't want a wall of words. You need to pause. You need to give your listeners time to catch up and time to ruminate. And
Yep. Yep. That's so true. That is so true. So, as I was looking at too, you say you're a generous teacher and a critic. How much of a critic are you?
I don't know, I alternate sometimes between thinking that I'm too harsh, and then other times I think I'm too generous, So I think as a teacher, you sometimes can get into a rut where you become kind of an error-seeking machine. And part of it is because you're tired and you're rushing, and you just want to like help people as fast as possible. So you just point all the errors out because that's faster than taking a moment to say, this is what you're doing well. And sometimes it's easier to articulate what somebody's doing badly than it is to articulate what they're doing well. Because if they're doing it well, it seems obvious. Like it seems so obvious that you don't even notice it in a weird way. So yeah, but on the other hand, when I just find often when I read people's work, I think, yeah, that's good. And, I like that too. And this is good too. And this is also good. So I don't know.
I like that. It's funny, but I like
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I try to be generous. I try to be generous. I think that I err on the side of being critical, too critical. And it's just a process. I have to keep on reminding myself, say something nice, say something nice. Remember, as a teacher, it's really easy to forget how much power you have to make a person feel bad.
Yes. And what grade do you teach? What grades?
Well, it's community college, so that's the first 2 years of college. And some
Cool.
people call it junior college. So, young, either 18, 19, 20. Some of them are returning adults, with children, or they're getting retrained. They're leaving one career and starting another one. So I've got some, 30, 40, 50-year-olds in my class too.
Wow, that's pretty cool. When I was in college at the University of Phoenix, it was in the Atlanta campus. I'm originally from Chicago, but I stayed in Georgia for a while too. And when I was there, we had a lady. She was in her 60s, and she was the eldest person in our class. But she was so lively, so vibrant. She was just you were not gonna tell her that she was an
Oh,
elderly person. She was
yeah.
not gonna show that. But she was so cool and so fun to be around and very inspiring. Very
Yeah. Yeah, I love my returning adult students, because also your brain matures, as you get older. I mean, literally, I study cognitive science just because I'm so fascinated by how the brain works. But literally, as you get older, the pathways, they start to get insulated with myelin, and so it's kind of like a insulation on a electric wire. So then the energy, transfers better, and you can, focus better. So that's what, with ADHD is remember that it's sort of at its worst when you're younger, and your brain does continue to develop, and my ability to focus is much better than it was when I was in college.
Oh wow. Oh, wow, that is cool. That is really cool. So as we're approaching our time, please, by all means, give us something motivational that you would like for our audience to know.
That I think that remember that you are brilliant because you were born, and we don't know whether you get any other chances in life or not. Maybe there's reincarnation, maybe there's life after that. We don't know. We know for sure, though, we get one shot. Don't waste it. Like, love yourself, love what you have. The more you love yourself, the more you'll unleash your potential. And trust that you are way smarter than you think you are.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. You heard it from Miss Lale Davidson. Please take that advice and run with it. So, Miss Davidson, can you please give us insight on where we can actually reach out to you, and read some of your information and follow you?
Well, thank you. My website is my name.com. So LALE Davidson, DAVIDSON.com. And then you can get links to all my books there, and my blogs, and some of my writing exercises and advice and things like that.
All right. So, on which platform do you spend the most time on?
Well, Right at this point, probably Facebook. And so that would be Lale Davidson author/author. And you can find both my personal page and my author page there. So I probably spend the most time there. I did a couple of TikToks, but I stopped doing that after a while. And there, my name is Literary Latte. So I have some writing tips in there, but TikTok's not really my platform.
Gotcha. Well, we all gotta find our niche somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
That is awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate you, Miss Davidson, for coming through to YTP Entertainment. I will definitely get this thing posted up. I'll send the link to you as well. And this has been a pleasure. This was fun. It was exciting. We got a chance to talk about some very interesting things as it related to your life. I love it. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I really enjoyed meeting you, and good luck in all that you do. And I'll follow you, and I'll keep track and see what happens.
Thank you, and I'll definitely follow you as well. Thank you so much.
All right.
Good day. Peace and blessings. We
Thank
out.
you. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.